Okay, today we're going to make refrigerator rolls. That's the name my mom wrote on the recipe. Her name is Dorothy Goodman, and I'm not sure where she got this recipe, but they're very good rolls that use yeast and so forth. So what I'm going to do today is make a double batch because that's what I need. So you'd probably want to cut everything in half if you want to just make a pan of rolls. So here we go. First thing we need to do is take yeast and start it working in the water that we have here. And we have 3 cups of water. Now remember, that's double the water you need if you're just doing a single batch. We have 2 packs of yeast to put in there. This is just standard yeast you buy at the grocery store. Be sure the expiration date is good or it won't work as well. And to that we're going to add, well, like I said, we have 3 cups of water, and then we warmed that up just a little bit to get the yeast going. 2 packs of yeast. We're going to have 2 teaspoons of salt. So it's probably not, some of these things are probably not that critical, but I like to follow them as best I can. 2 teaspoons of salt and 8 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, and this is just to get the yeast working. It's 1, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, so we have our 8 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, and we just want to mix this to get the salt and the sugar mixed up with the yeast, and that'll start working right away. And that's really the key. Some of the key elements of the rolls is getting this yeast going, and you have nice fluffy yeast rolls. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to want to make these and find out, because they're, every time I have to bring something to someone's house, like food, they say, "Can you make the rolls?" So they're really good. But this we'll have to then set aside, and I'm just going to set it here, but it needs to wait like 15 or 20 minutes to start bubbling, and you'll notice a foam layer over top. But while that's waiting, we're going to put our flour in, and we're going to use 9 full cups of plain flour, and that's a lot. And what I would do is I would just use like about 8 actually in the mixer, because the reason for that is we're going to be adding another cup at the end, just rolling the dough out and so forth. And so we want to get the total of 9. Again, now that's double what you would do if you're just making a single batch. Okay, so we've got our 8 cups of flour, and now to that we're gonna use a mixer. And you can do this by hand. I have done it by hand. I don't recommend it. It's really hard on your elbows and so forth. But the mixer with the dough hook, this is called a dough hook, and if you have one of these, a KitchenAid or something, they're really great because it really does the work for you. So so we have our 8 cups of flour. Remember, we're going to put 1 more in, but that's going to be at the end when we're just rolling out the dough. So to this we're going to add our shortening, and here we have 1 cup of shortening. Again, that's double for this recipe, so only 1/2 cup would be for a single recipe. We're going to add that to the flour. Now to that, I'm going to go ahead and lock this down and just stir that around a little bit. To that we're going to add our yeast mixture. And if you can see the yeast, you can see the layer of foam on the top. You can tell that that's really working, And if you don't get that, I mean, you may want to leave it setting a little bit longer or something to just be sure your yeast is working. I'm just going to gradually add that to the mix. Okay, tell me when. Okay, so we're finishing pouring in the yeast, and what I've got is a spatula just to kind of punch down the dough, get it very well mixed. Let's look at it. So what you're going to have is a very sticky, doughy mixture in your bowl at this point. And if you're doing it by hand, by now you're very tired. But you have this, just kind of get it off the hook there. Now what I like to do is just scrape the sides and kind of make a mound in there. And you can see the kind of the consistency there. And if you want to, you can add a little bit more flour at this point if you think it's too doughy. It's really not going to matter right now. So what we're going to do now is put a little bit of aluminum foil over it, or whatever you have to cover that up. And we're just going to put that in the refrigerator. So that, and I think that's why they're called refrigerator rolls. But anyway, we just let this sit for a while. You could be like a day even, but usually I just let it sit for like an hour. So our dough has been in the refrigerator, like I said, for a while. It can be a day or two. I usually don't do that. All it's been doing is kind of resting, kind of getting itself together in there. And now we're gonna pat it out, and to do that, here comes the other bit of flour I was talking about. You need to have a surface. I mean, this is not usually where I do it, but this is the best place to video this, so that's why I'm doing it right next to the stove here. You're going to put your dough out onto the flour, and this is just so, well, it's going to be very sticky, so you want to, you know, so it doesn't stick to the counter and everything. I always try to get it all out because it's all good stuff. Okay. Now what we want to do is, and on this this last amount of flour, you're just kind of eyeballing it. I mean, it's not important. You're just going to want to get some more flour in there so that it's not sticky, so that you can roll it out. And to do that, you know, it depends on how sticky it was to begin with. You may need more, you know, than I said, but on a normal batch you would need like about a half, you know, hold about a half out. On this batch, of course, is a double, so I'm probably going to use maybe another cup here. I like to roll it out by hand, and again, in this case, I'm going to use only half at a time because it's just too hard to work with that big amount. And a lot of people will use a rolling pin. There's many different thoughts on that. I don't use it much, to tell you the truth. I like to just do it by hand, and so you can do it however you're comfortable with, but you want to pat it out to be maybe like a half an inch or maybe a little thicker. And then what I take is a cup. You can find a cup in your cupboard. I like this size, but it kind of depends on the size of the roll you're making. So you can experiment with that. And I just put the cup down. I mean, there's cookie cutters and so forth, but I find a cup won't hurt the countertop if you're using a countertop. And if you had a steel cutter of some sort, you're not going to be happy with doing this. So that's why I use a plastic cup. Okay, now I'm going to show just how it's a pretty important step here, and this is where you make the rolls into the. They don't look like rolls now. And what you do is I've melted about a stick of butter in a. You may only do a half or whatever, but you just want some melted butter. And this is not for the calorie conscious people, okay? So if you're calorie conscious, you're only going to have one roll maybe. But what you want to do is use butter, and you dip the roll in the butter, and then just fold it over. And what that's going to do for you, and put it in the pan just like this. What that's going to do is create a fold when it bakes. So now these rolls will separate right along that butter line. And that's key to making good rolls. Now we're going to use a lot more of this butter at the end to put over them after we've cooked them. Okay, now that we've got the rolls rolled out, the butter in between and folded up, put in a pan. You don't need to grease the pans, by the way. I like to use a deep dish pan, and I like to set them really close together because when they bake, they're going to have soft sides but nice crust on the top and bottom, and I think that really makes them look like a dinner roll. Okay, now we're going to set these aside for an hour or two in a warm place, and if you don't have a warm place, then you need to turn on the oven to warm and throw them in there, and then keep the oven door open and turn it off and so forth. You just want it like, maybe 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 80 or something like that. So in the wintertime it's a little difficult, and you'll see in about an hour or two, depending on how warm they get, they will rise up in the next, and we'll show you what that looks like in a second. Okay, so the rolls have risen. Again, it might take a while. It depends on how warm they are, but you can see they've probably doubled in size before you want to bake them. And you bake them at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. So we're going to put these in for 400 degrees at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. Okay, so we've waited about 20 minutes, and you want to keep checking them to see that they're brown. They need to be brown on top, and these look good. Grab the other pan. These are going to be probably the best rolls you've ever eaten. So when I take them out, then I like to just put a little bit of butter on top like this, and that kind of I don't know, when you bite into it, you kind of taste that butter going in, and it's really good. And so that's how you make refrigerator rolls. Enjoy.